بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. باسم الجهة المنظمة لمنتدى أسبار الدولي، يسعدني أن أرحب بالجميع من داخل المملكة العربية السعودية أو من أي بلد في العالم حيث يصلهم هذا البث المباشر في الدورة الخامسة، والتي تعقد تحت عنوان مستقبل المستقبل، وتمتد فعالياتها خلال الفترة من 2 إلى 4 نوفمبر 2020، وتحت ظروف استثنائية يمر فيها العالم بسبب فيروس كورونا المستجد. إلا أن القائمين على مركز أسبار الدولي وعلى رأسهم سعادة الدكتور فهد العرابي الحارثي أصروا على إقامة منتدى أسبار لهذه الدورة الخامسة والاستثنائية في جميع ظروفها وأحوالها، ويشكرون على هذا الجهد ونتمنى لهم التوفيق. قبل أن نبدأ في هذه الجلسة الرابعة التي بعنوان السعادة الرقمية، لا يخفى عليكم بأن العالم بات اليوم على أعتاب ثورة نوعية جديدة بفضل الآلة المتعلمة شديدة الذكاء، والتي ستندمج وتتآلف وتتعاون وتتكامل مع العنصر البشري وتتنبأ بمتطلباته وتلبي جميع احتياجاته في المستقبل ورغباته وتساعده على تحقيق الرفاهية والسعادة. الأمر الذي يطرح العديد من التساؤلات حول إمكانية أن تكون الرقمية مفتاحا رئيسيا لسعادتنا، وهل يمكن للتكنولوجيا الجديدة أن تفي بوعودها وتحقق ذلك؟ هناك العديد من التساؤلات حول طبيعة العلاقة ما بين التكنولوجيا والسعادة، وما هو التغير الذي يحدث في مفهوم السعادة، وهل هناك علاقة بين الإنترنت والتقنية وهرم ماسلو للاحتياجات الإنسانية، وما هي منصات وتطبيقات السعادة الجديدة، وهل يمكن قياس السعادة في العصر الرقمي، وكيف يمكن الحفاظ عليها، وكيفية التوازن ما بين الاندماج في هذا العالم والحفاظ على إرادة الإنسان الحرة. لأول مرة في تاريخ البشرية تتفوق الأجهزة على البشر، فبحسب تقرير صادر من مؤسسة GSMA Intelligence تبين أن ازدياد عدد الأجهزة الإلكترونية الذكية في العالم يفوق النمو البشري على سطح هذه الأرض بمعدل 5 مرات. يشارك معي في هذه الجلسة نخبة من الخبراء والمختصين يرصدون خلال هذه الجلسة بعضا من التقنيات والابتكارات الجديدة التي ستوضح مفهوم السعادة الرقمية. ستكون الجلسة جلسة نقاش حوارية مع ضيوفنا الأعزاء، وفي البداية راح نخصص 5 دقائق لكل متحدث ليسلط الضوء على أبرز النقاط عن مفهوم السعادة الرقمية، وبهذا سيكون لدينا في النهاية 30 دقيقة تقريبا متبقية لطرح الأسئلة والنقاش، مع العلم بأنه يمكن طرح أسئلتكم على ضيوفنا من خلال الضغط على أيقونة اسأل المتحدث في أعلى المنصة. نبدأ بأول المتحدثين، معنا السيد إيرام طوايا. إيرام, go ahead please. Iram, do you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Iram.
Yes, so can you see my screen?
5 minutes.
Yes, welcome everyone. My name is Iram Tawia, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Letty Arts, which is a video game development company in Africa. We are in Ghana and Kenya. So I'm just going to take you through our work process and how gaming has developed on the continent so far. Letty Arts has been a strategic partner to very leading companies, provided gaming services to companies one way or the other. We were founded in 2009. As I said, Ghana and Kenya are our offices, and our focus is on rich African content for global audience. So we have a franchise we call Africa's Legends that we really pride ourselves in. We are one of the very first pioneers of gaming on the continent, since it's not something that is mostly coming from this part of the world, founded by myself and my partner, Wesley Kirinya, in Kenya. We are a very solid small team of passionate Africans making games using local expertise to compete globally. And we are very passionate in what we do. At Leti, we have 3 pillars. We have Africa's Legends and we have Afro Comics. And then we consult for companies using the technologies that we've built. The issue in Africa is that we are 55 countries, 3,000 plus cultures, and over 1 billion people. And in the gaming industry, we don't contribute much. The industry is very, very nascent, but we have very rich stories that can also be gamified. Some of the problems are mostly the nascent gaming culture we have, small fragmented markets, and then we also have scarce talent and limited developer resources. When it comes to the cultural problem, in Africa, there are 2 main walled gardens. We have education and we have video games. When you are studying, when you pick a book now, your mother or father will say, hey, you are learning. But when you are playing games, we don't consider it as learning. You get yourself punished. So for us, the question was, how do we make games relevant on the continent in the best fun way? How do we bring these 2 walled gardens together? And we asked ourselves, can we preserve African culture through this? And yes, we all know that Black Panther opened the door for us. So what did we do? Leveraging on all these cultures, we brought along Africa's Legends, which is one of our major franchises, retelling African historic figures in superhero forms through fantasized stories in games and comics across Africa. So we have heroes that represent Shaka Zulu, Yasantua, all the big legends, and then we have villains that represent problems on the continent, like religious wars, child soldiers, kidnapping, greedy presidents, and all that, corruption on the continent. So we made comics, and then we made games, which you can access on the Play Store. And we try to keep our characters very, very African and unique, which is appealing globally. So these are some of the scenes from the comics that we've built, which is getting into the new game that we are building called Africa's Legends Reawakening. And Reawakening is an innovative game that we are trying to build because considering the device limitations on the continent, we want to build a AAA game that can be played through SMS as well. So we made a game that lives online, but you can use feature phones, SMS, and high-end phones to access it. These countries representing the game, very, very, very fun. We are just about releasing it, just because feature phones contribute about 32% of phones on the continent so far. Our work process is really, really, really fun. We try to use arts and science. Gaming is an industry that brings extreme arts and extreme science together. So at the art side, we work with story writers where we develop the story. So on your screen, you can see normal story written by a story writer. Then we, the technical guys, try to fish out the gameplay features from the story. So here you can see combat, dialogue, diffuse trap. So we extract that from the story. And then we draw it into a technical form that can be gamified. Then the artists also start their work. The work is in very detailed forms. We research about cultures and we try to do concept arts to represent these cultures as correctly as possible. These are some of the examples. Anansi from Ghana, you can see us having our beautiful kente, trying to make a superhero out of kente. We have the Maasai, and we do a lot of concept arts, different concept arts. We have villains also made in the form of villains in the form of heroes. Then the science bit comes through, which I know on this panel, we have some AI experts there, where we extract the gameplay. And this is where we do the most of the programming. So,
yes. We will go in detail. We will go in detail in the second round, please. Maybe just to give the other speakers.
Exactly. Let me just wrap up. So normally our work is quite extensive, and we also include some of the disability bits in it. So this is how we make life fun on the continent, and Leti Arts it's not just building an industry in Africa, we are building a whole new industry that will provide jobs for a lot of people through video games and digital comics. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, إيرام. You covered most of the important about your slide. ننتقل الآن إلى المتحدث الثاني السيد أحمد جمال. سيد أحمد جمال، إذا كان عندك عرض أو شرائح تعرضها، يا ليت في أيقونة فوق، أيقونة اللي هي البن، ممكن تضغط عليها علشان يكون معنا الفيديو والشرائح. تفضل أحمد جمال. تفضل سيد أحمد.
شكرا. هو أنا مع can you hear me now or?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, very good. I don't have slides. I was planning to explain the video, but I just ran into a final minute technical problem with the camera, so I apologize for that. And I'm here today to talk about virtual reality and augmented reality, and how they contribute to the digital human happiness. So if you don't know the difference between the virtual reality and augmented reality, it's mainly one is taking the person and making him live in a virtual environment, that's VR, and the other one, augmented reality, is just changing the way reality is by putting something virtual into it. Now there is a new term for both of them, and they both combined called XR, which is kind of a trendy name for now. Now, virtual reality and augmented reality, they are not new, and you will be surprised to know that the first appearance for VR headset that actually can be considered augmented reality as well was in 1968. It was a Sword of Themistocles, and it was made by a scientist called Ivan Sutherland. This headset was just able to draw some lines, but this was the beginning of it all. And probably the people who worked on this project did not know and wouldn't have expected how far this have gone now. At the moment, the contribution of AR and VR to human happiness may not be so clear, yet these technologies are showing great potential for a big role in the near future. They are expected to be the new digital platform where people can communicate, learn, collaborate, invent stuff, whether alone or together. This is why investors all over the world are interested in these new technologies and trends. They are trying to push it. The immersion and user experience, these are the key words that you are going to get from virtual reality and augmented reality. This is the main difference between virtual reality and augmented reality and the current platforms that we are recently using. So this is the big change that's going to add to the human happiness in the future, and this is what's making it a great potential. So in order to understand this immersion and experience, I've just prepared some examples that I will discuss quickly. Some use cases for the augmented reality and virtual reality technologies. Of course, the games is the first thing that comes in mind. But when we talk about games and entertainment, it's not only games that's actually going to make people more happy with virtual reality and augmented reality. It's also movies, all sorts of entertainment. There's even a roller coaster, like a lot of roller coasters and parks, like theme parks, just using VR technology at the moment. Another thing that we can, or another example or a use case, is basically the simulation to train firefighters, policemen, pilots, factory workers. So this is going to enable a lot of people to learn much faster with much less cost and much less health problems, for example, or much less risk as well. One more thing, there is the health care. So there is a lot of experiments at the moment using the virtual reality and augmented reality technologies to do some kind of healing for emotional and mental problems. And this is have a direct relationship to the digital human happiness. But this is not the only aspect when it comes to healthcare. Also, training those doctors and nurses is one of the very clear usages for virtual reality and augmented reality. So a lot of doctors and nurses, they train and basically they go through like a surgery or something in VR, and they are able to interact with the tools, and they're able to interact with the subject, with the patient, with no need to have a real patient in front of them. Another use case is definitely tourism, and definitely there is also a lot of use cases in art, interior design, and architecture. Imagine if you're buying a house or a new apartment, or you're buying furniture for the new apartment. It's definitely not going to be the same, the ways that you actually be inside the apartment, see this new piece of furniture and how it looks like and how it fits the other pieces of furniture that you already have. That's a huge difference from just seeing some images online or some images in a magazine. So this is something that that's definitely common, definitely coming. Another use case is the education. So there is just a quick example, which is already being utilized, is anatomy, for example, for medical students. So you can have, like, if you have the VR headset, you can see the whole human body with all different parts and all different layers. So you can scroll between them and do a lot of things with the anatomies, which was not very easy before. So using statues or models is not the same as having this kind of control. One of the main things as well is the social interaction and conferencing. So this is just like right now we are doing the conference using video calls, but maybe in the future we will have like an avatar that represents us, or a 3D scan from our faces and 3D scan for our bodies, and we will be sitting kind of in front of each other using the augmented reality technology, even though we were countries apart. And one of the uses as well is the fitness. So imagine if you are at home and you're doing using the exercise bike. After 20 minutes or within 20 minutes, you will get bored. But if you have the VR headset, then this is going to be a game, and you'll be collecting coins and avoiding obstacles on the way. Now, I'm going to finish my talk by just saying that there are concerns. These technologies, both of these technologies are actually are just tools. So there are concerns because it's really up to the content creators whether to use it properly to create happiness, or do something that's risky or dangerous, like creating an addictive game that detaches people from the outside world. So of course, this is a call for all people to contribute as much as they can to the proper use of these new and very powerful technologies. And thank you, and I'll be ready for any questions whenever you need, and whenever we have any questions.
Come back to you, Mr. Ahmed, and we have many questions about the AR and VR and some of the applications that you mentioned. Our next speaker, Professor Jesper Tegner from King Abdullah University for Science and Technology. Go ahead, please, Professor Jesper.
Sure, thank you for having me here. And I have no slides by intention, so I'm going to talk with you. So the future is changing, and the future of the future is changing fast. And I would like to make the argument that maybe it's changing even faster than we expect, and possibly in a different turn. So let me start with the common grounds. I think games are a good common ground. I mean, they're a good source of happiness and enjoyment, and also a major driver of change of our behaviors. And an interesting aspect of games is that AI systems and machine learning systems has recently outperforming human players immensely. And this really started in the 90s with the backgammon, 94, and then with the IBM beating Kasparov, 97, and then most recently with Go. So these are classical board games, but this is also now happening in interactive games like StarCraft and other games. So AI system is becoming really powerful. And the idea behind this, using games as a test ground, is maybe this is a way to generate general intelligence going beyond what is called narrow AI. So if you take this idea that you benchmark AI system against games and find general principles for general AI, and you combine that with robotics, we may see a future of smart robots possibly outsmarting humans. This is a very open question whether this is possible and when it will happen. It may take a long time. Now, At the same time, we have seen another revolution in the biosphere, starting essentially with the sequencing of the human genome. And we have the same genome in all the cells, but the cells are different. So the genome is a fairly sophisticated program that generates our different cells in the body, heart cells, nerve cells, skin cells, and whatnot. And today we have very powerful tools to know a lot about these different cells, to collect huge amount of data, using machine learning techniques to understand these cells. So we are getting a blue chart in the sense of a periodic system. And everyone knows that if we have a periodic system of different atoms, we can do a lot of things from engineering perspective. And the same thing is happening now in the biosphere. We're getting a periodic system of different cells. We can even start to reprogram cells using stem cell biology, a recent Nobel Prize, and also we can start to edit, not just read the genomes, we can edit the genomes with CRISPR. So we can start to view living systems as programmable information devices. And this open very, very interesting interfaces with technology, nanotechnology and biotechnology. So what is happening if we combine these two different developments? We have the revolution in the biosphere. We can read and we can write the genomes, and we can do engineering, and we can start to connect these systems with machine intelligence systems. So rather than having standalone devices outside our bodies, be it robots or we're using smartphones or computers, we will see a development, I predict, that we can see convergence of these two technologies. We can start to connect these devices to the body. And this has been going on for some time. And you can see, you read brain signals from the scalp using EEG or other kind of signals. And there are several examples of this. We can also see in engineering on a deeper cellular level. We can start to create organs in the lab, and we can interface these systems with digital devices. And I don't know whether we will be happy with this, but I think this is very nearby coming, and we don't have to rely on development of general artificial intelligence. So this will create a new world of opportunities and challenges, of course. So like in the gaming world, when the game's becoming very good, we can't really distinguish between the virtual reality and the real reality. That distinction is blurred in the gaming. And I think when we connect our bodies with these devices, the distinction between who are we and what's the outside world will become a challenge to uphold. What is personal identity, and how can we control ourselves if we are connected to digital devices? And how can we avoid being hacked by other entities? And how can we be safe in a cybersecurity way in this way? And how can we be happy? So this, I think, is a scenario which is much more challenging and possibly may become reality before we have general smart robots, if we ever will have that. And that will be a good opportunity, I think, for economic growth and possibilities with challenges. So that's my conjecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jesper. I think very interesting topic. You know, finding this small, robot inside our body, this is very interesting for everybody in this world. I think we will come back to you, and we may have some questions to clarify these things. Our next speaker, Mr. Tommy, would you go ahead, please, Mr. Tommy?
Thank you very much. It's an honor being here. I'll share a deck with you guys. Give me 2 seconds here.
Yes, Mr. Tommy, go ahead, please. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I will try to make this as brief as possible. So about 20 years ago, I started my first esports team. There were a lot of questions on how you were able to provide for yourself playing video games. I think that a lot of... Can you see it? Okay, wait 2 seconds.
No, there is nothing in the screen. Can you share it again, please? And make sure you select the pen. The pen to see your video. Yeah.
Do you see it now?
Yes. Presentation mode, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so about 20 years ago, I got into esports. I think, as the professor earlier said, that about 20 years ago, a lot of things started happening pretty rapidly. The infrastructure, the IT were building out. A lot more people had access to internet, and the phenomenon of being able to play against each other. I mean, sport has been doing that for many, many years. And I think that's why people get so interested in electronic sports, because it has so much common points as the traditional sports, except that you don't exercise as much physically as you do in traditional sports. But the other aspects of playing in a team, doing strategies, you have to train to get better, you have to be good at reactions, you have to have aim, you have to have the mechanical skills, both while actually working as a team. And I think 20 years ago, a lot of people, when this was a new phenomenon, didn't understand what esports were. They thought it was just common gaming, like playing Nintendo. Most of you have obviously heard of Super Mario Bros. And so on. And you basically play a story, and esports is nothing like that, because you create your own story. There's no limits on, you have to do the strategies yourself. The world is more open. You have to make your own decisions. You have to do split decisions. You have to practice to get better, and you have to do it normally in a team. And the phenomenon has been growing. I mean, 20 years ago, esports were held in small basements. There wasn't that many spectators. But that's something happened about 10 years ago, when it actually became a spectator sport. People enjoyed watching other people play. They understand how hard it is to become good at this, to play in a good team. And it started filling up arenas, breaking records, and now 20 years later actually suppressed traditional sports. You have, for example, Super Bowl. That's one of the largest sports events in the world. Last year it had 101 million viewers continuously, while League of Legends actually had 102 million watching at the same time. So it's quite amazing that just one esport can surpass one traditional sport. I will go through some numbers, but I won't dig into that much, because that's not the important topic is here. But I mean, we have almost 500 million viewers worldwide now watching esports, not playing themselves, but actually watching. You have about 250 million active players. And an active player is a player that plays more than 2 hours 2 times per week. You have the record for the largest single event prize money, even more prize pool than traditional sports like tennis, golf, or you name it. So it's not just more viewership, but actually more money that you can win in the contest as well. And the viewership and the revenue of the whole industry is growing rapidly every year. So, I mean, we all heard about the story about the digitalization. It's happening all over the world. We can't deny it. And esports is a really innovating and modern and fun way to learn high-end skill sets and actually prepare you for the future work environment. I mean, when I started playing 20 years ago, my parents told me, why do you spend so much time in front of the computer? You will gain nothing useful from it. But now when I fast forward 20 years in the future, I mean, everything I learned and had to use in my working career was actually from esports. The ability to be a leader inside the game, to develop strategies, team communications, problem solving, computer knowledge. I mean, you learn so much from just playing games today, and that's why esports is really a creative tool to be able to adapt to the rapid digitalization that we see all over the world today. In Sweden, we have a problem where we actually don't have enough youth that wants to go into the digitalization education part. We have a lack of programmers that we need to outsource it from other countries and so on. And esports is a really good way of helping that in the infrastructure. I'll try and wrap it up here, but I mean, why do we need esports, and how can it help with the ecosystem on the digitalization? I mean, you have the communication, as I said, you have working teams and group, you have the information management strategies, you have the you're working in a digital environment. I mean, you need it more and more, especially now with the COVID situation where everybody has switched to digital sessions, digital meetings, everything just similar like you do in traditional esports today. The problem with esports today is that everybody is focusing on the top tier, just the top teams, the top organizations. Everybody's trying to focus on what you could say the World Cup in esports, but nobody's trying to build a healthier ecosystem where you have esports integrated into education courses, you have the education linked to esports, where you're working with youth in a younger generation, because nowadays when you go into esports, you have to try and make your own planning, how to get better. You don't have coaches supporting you. You don't have the same structure as traditional sports.
Yes,
you don't have the local leagues. You don't have the local teams.
Yes, I think very, very creative tools that you mentioned about the esports. I think we will come back definitely to you, and we have some questions that we will raise it with all audiences, and that we received it from audiences, and I will share it with the speakers. Now the last speaker, thank you very much, Tommy. It's a very interesting topic. الآن مع المتحدث الخامس والأخير في هذه الجلسة الدكتور حسين الجحدلي، خبير متخصص في الحوسبة السحابية والأمن السبراني. تفضل دكتور.
شكرا دكتور سلطان. السلام عليكم. Thank you very much, Dr. Sultan. Actually, I am honored to be in such a very interesting session with all the esteemed speakers today. The efforts that I will share today, I had the pleasure to work with His Excellency Dr. Riyad Najm and Dr. Hamid al-Sharari to tackle the issue of artificial intelligence governance and regulation or regulatory. So I will touch base in several points and try to correlate between the data that we got as a result and the subjects that we are tackling today in our happiness session. So when we talk about digital happiness, or it's not a matter of happiness, but the matter of digital before happiness is very important, because as Professor Gasper said, we have the physical the physical space and we have the cyber space. We used to have these barriers and boundaries we can clearly define and segregate and combine whenever we want. Right now, we are merging and trying to blend all these spaces together. So this situation creates very, very important and bigger threats that we didn't actually experience before, and we are unknown to them. The direction Professor Gasper actually bringing by combining two different concepts or different landscapes into a new one gives a very ambitious direction, but unleashing just such ambitious powers and utilizing more and more technology, and especially emerging technologies, yes, brings benefits, but brings bigger threats. So we need to tackle such the issues that Mr. Iram talked about. Even in gaming, they try to preserve some culture, because the world now, yes, becoming into one village or one place, but yet with several languages and cultures, and each nation deserve the right to preserve their cultures. So what correct in one culture might not be correct into another culture. These issues brings challenges to what we are trying to achieve. Mr. Ahmed talked about how technology and different approaches and techniques could enhance the healthcare system and bring benefits actually to the overall industry in providing healthcare services. Tommy also, instead of talking about sport, now we are adding the letter E in every industry. So we have sport, we have e-sports, we have health, we have e-health. We have, it's only the exception for education. So we have online education right now, but we have commerce, we have e-commerce. So trying to have that shadow industry parallel to the physical industry brings a lot of challenges. Why we are now emphasizing in technology and happiness. Actually, reaching a happiness is a higher level where we need to fulfill first the necessity of everyday activity. And that's what we are trying to achieve by having an empowering technology, especially emerging technology into these industries. So the increased population that we are having right now, the standard of service, regardless of the industry, is now are raised and more. The demand for the service is very increasing. The access, the technology gives us the beauty of just dissolving barriers and borders. The event that we are attending right now, if it's not online, we will have a limited access for a limited people in the ground. So technology brings other benefits, but yet bring authorities. The study that we did actually, why we are focusing on artificial intelligence, because emerging technology are actually enabling the current activities to be more utilized into and bringing more services to the beneficiary and utilizing efficiently the resources, regardless they are human resources or infrastructure or technology. So trying to bring that efficient utilization of resource and expand the services, raise the quality. This is a demand and vital. It's not anymore a luxury. It's a demand and vital for the governments to act for. We shared actually, we did a survey and we requested the opinions of 100+ think tanks all over the world. So 95% of the responses do agree that AI should be regulated and should be governed. So we do actually distinguish between regulations comes with authority with the government. So if you violate regulations, you will be actually ticketed or you will be under violation and penalties. But governance is another concept that we can find anywhere in private, public, non-profit organizations to try to sort out who is in the decision maker and how the decision should come out. So both concepts are important. Why we are tackling AI? Because AI is one of the emerging technology. Most of the new emerging technologies lies under the umbrella of AI. The other pocket of emerging technologies are being utilized efficiently by AI to give a future directions like predicting behaviors and try to control and direct the future directions of everyday activity. So we are not dealing with every day. We are really actually dealing with the future with AI. So there is a lot of concerns. The most top industries or sectors that need to have an immediate tackle of such control, not only unleashing the powers of emerging technology without controlling them, because if you unleash the powers into the wrong hands, disasters and big-time disasters could happen and may happen. And we witnessed that through history. We can highlight certain situations. So the biggest industry that we need to tackle now is health, banking, and security. All three can bring catastrophic disasters to the globe, not only to a certain country or region in this world. Actually, we have a lot of...
Dr. Hussein, sorry to interrupt you because we have very limited time and we have some questions.
Thank you. I will conclude just with very interesting issues that we have as a challenge. We have ethical issues. So in order to control such issues, we need to bring something to control and regulate our activities. All these ambitions need to be put into the right direction and the right position. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Utilization of the resources is very important. I think is also essential for any organizations. I think let's go now to the questions that I received. The first questions that I received, and it's very interesting questions, to Professor Jasper. You know, connecting organic systems on our bodies and brains with intelligent machines open the door to the new world and the new challenges and opportunities. Would you please, Professor, elaborate more, and what is the research status in this area up to date? And have you seen any research results in this regard that you can share it with us? Go ahead, please, with 2 minutes, please, Professor Jasper.
So thank you for that question. So on the research side, people have been trying this for the last 10, 15 years. But what has happened recently is that we can build interfaces to cells directly with electronics, with nanotechnology. So we can interfere with cells with electronics. We can also do that on the brain. We can measure signals on the brain. And just to give you one example, everyone knows who Elon Musk is. And one of his recent companies is Neuralink. So his idea is, for example, that he views AI as a potential threat in some way. So why not take it closer? Why not try to interface and link it up with our brains? And that's a clear opportunity. And there's a lot of research going on there, trying to put electrodes on the head and then trying to detect what will you do, what do you think, will you choose left or right? So there's a lot of research activity in that. And if we can do that, for example, if we can control electronic devices by our brain directly instead of a mouse and a keyboard, one obvious question is, what would that mean for the gaming world? What kind of new innovations would we see? Because I agree with the last speaker, there are many threats and concerns in here, but there are lots of opportunities of economic and innovation value to have this development in a safe, sustainable way and coming up with new innovations. So connecting directly in games is one, and we can also ask, how can we use AI, not just to outsmart humans in game, but also use AI for making better games, more efficient education, and increase the happiness. But that all depends on the interface.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, and we will also read about it more. You know, since jamming these, you know, signals in our brain will be one of the topics. I think that will be very, very challenging for the people who is using this technology. The second question, I will go to Iram. Iram, would you answer this question with 2 minutes, please? In the following, you know, 5 years, where do you see Leti Arts and Africa Legends?
Yes. So basically, for us, in the next 5 years, we are creating a whole universe. So we see Leti Arts, Africa's Legends fighting Black Panther, Marvel Universe, and Justice League, becoming allies, and also really bringing out some really great African superpowers to the world, and creating digital happiness for everyone. You know, that's what we want to tell. We want to showcase Africa in a positive light. We want our kids from today, when they read about Africa, it's not about the poverty, it's not about the problems, but it's all about a Captain Africa fixing or fighting an alien that is landing in Ghana or Accra. Or, you know, we shouldn't always have aliens attacking the White House. They should attack the presidential palace in Africa as well. So we are trying to create that form of digital happiness and preserve culture on the continent for the world to enjoy. So basically, that's
very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Iram. I think we have to conclude with 4 minutes. The following question to Tommy and Gemerson: Why invest in esports? This is a common question from many audiences. There is this questions, and since we are talking about the digital happiness, how can esports be fun to just watch other people play a game online? You are muted, Mr. Tommy. You are muted. We cannot hear you.
Sorry. Okay, thank you very much. It's an interesting question. I think it's divided in two parts. I will start with the last question. Actually, I was at a good friend of mine. He was turning 40 and he had this big birthday party, and a couple came up to me and said, hey, are you the guy who was playing esports? I mean, we don't understand it completely, but our son and our daughter are playing it a lot. And he said something to me that realized, okay, now it's interesting, because we have a sport in Sweden that's really huge. It's ice hockey. It's kind of the national sport next to soccer or football. And everybody's watching it. And one time he came into his son's room and knocked at the door and was like, why are you watching other people playing games? That's so stupid. Why do you do that? And he said, well, they're good at what they're doing, Dad. I mean, it's interesting to watch people that are good at something they do and learn from it, and they're becoming idols for you. And the next day he was sitting at the TV in the sofa watching ice hockey. And the kid comes up to him and said, Dad, why are you watching hockey? It's fun. They're really good at it, and I enjoy it. And then he said, like, Dad, what did you ask me yesterday? The exact same thing. Like, why do people watch sports? Because people are good at what they do. They're experts. It's interesting. I mean, you don't have to do it themselves to enjoy it. So esports is becoming more than just playing games. It's an entertainment system. And that's why it's also answering the next question. Why do we need to invest in esports? Because I mean, we saw the phenomenon growing for the past 20 years. I think until 10 years ago, people were like closing their eyes and said, this is just a flu like the internet, or it's not going to become big. And all of a sudden it became bigger than traditional sports. I mean, they used to say that esports were boosting numbers, and esports is more than just one sport, and that's why it's so big. But now, as I said earlier, like one esports, League of Legends, have more viewership than the Super Bowl. And Super Bowl is one of the largest sports phenomenon in the world. I mean, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, there were more people watching esports the same time it was the Olympics. And Olympics is sold for billions and billions when it comes to viewership rights and commercial rights and so on. And now you see the future, that esports hasn't stopped growing. And if you look at the numbers, because you can't refuse them anymore, the percentage esports is growing every year. And while the digitalization is like growing, we're talking about AI and so on, but I mean, the world is looking at like real digitalization the next few years, and people are having easier to communicate, and that's why the interest for esports as well is growing so much. And that's why there's so many opportunities to invest, because you can build a whole new ecosystem where sports management, viewership, commercial rights, sports clubs, there's so many things and you can do in the industry.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think very interesting, and I assume you are targeting the new generation, and definitely not me or Jasper.
Well, maybe you're never too old in getting a new hobby.
Thank you very much. The next question to Ahmed Jamal. How do you see the virtual reality and augmented reality technologies and their application has, great potential to make our digital life easier and happier? Would you give us in 1 minute, answering this concern or this question?
Okay, so at the moment, there is still a difference. There is still, you need a big headset that you put it in your head to interact or to go to the virtual reality. But I believe that in the near future, you will not need that. As you can see, the processing power getting much higher, and you don't need a huge device to be put in your head. So maybe later on, you're just going to have like just little glasses, and that's all what you need to be connected to the virtual reality or augmented reality. And I'm very sure once we reach this stage, everything is going to be going in that direction. Everything that we do, it's going to be like the new mobile phone. Everything that we will do is going to be through this little glasses. Every kind of interaction is going to be assisted by some digital information. The maps that we are using right now, we'll be able to see it while we're walking in the street, just drone on the road in front of us while we're walking. So it has a lot of applications. It's not 100% clear at the moment because it's still growing, but it has great potential. Every experiment that they did, it gave a lot of good results in showing how it's going to help the human and the happiness in general.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed Jamal, for covering this topic. Last question to Dr. Hussein Al-Jahdali. How do you see the cybersecurity enhancement or enhance the digital happiness? And I think there is a complementary between what you presented in terms of the cybersecurity and what Jasper presented in the new technologies that he mentioned in his speech. Would you answer this question, Dr. Hussein?
Yes, actually, to answer the big question short, the feeling of being safe is the first step toward reaching the happiness level. So you need first to feel you are secure, you are safe, and all what are your belongings in the same stage. Then you will feel that you are, engaging with technology and engaging with the new directions of innovation or creativity with a more opening mindset. So you will feel then happiness. So the road toward happiness lies actually in the feeling of being safe and secure. But we need to find the balance, and it's really very, very tricky one, to find the balance between all the benefits that we are getting and bringing and all the opportunities that we need to harvest, and how to control and secure all the assets that we are dealing with and trading with.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hussein. ويبقى السؤال في الختام إنه كيف نحافظ على سعادتنا في العصر الرقمي؟ لا شك أن التكنولوجيا ليس لها علاقة في حد ذاتها بالسعادة بقدر ما يرتبط الأمر بكيفية استخدام تلك التكنولوجيا، وما هي إلا وسيلة، ومن ثم فإن هناك عدد من المؤثرات في نشاط السعادة في العصر الرقمي، وهي دور الاتصال مقابل الانفصال، والأخذ مقابل العطاء، والعمق مقابل السطحية، والفعل الإيجابي مقابل السلبية. دمتم جميعا سعداء، وإلى أن نلتقيكم في الجلسة الخامسة لمنتدى أسبار مع الزملاء، والتي بعنوان استبصار المستقبل، دور العلوم في تخطي التحولات الحرجة، والتي ستبدأ بعد هذه الجلسة مباشرة بإذن الله. وختاما أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل لضيوف الأعزاء الذين أثروا هذه الجلسة بمعلوماتهم، وأشكر جميع المشاهدين والمشاهدات الذين استقطعوا من وقتهم الثمين وتابعوا هذه الجلسة. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.